Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Q&A session. My name is Fatima Afshar. I'm your host today, and I've started the Q&A session with Dr. Mohsen Paul Sarfarazi, and this will be our first session together. So first, I want to say hi and welcome Dr. Sarfarazi.
My pleasure. Hello, Fatih, and I'm delighted that you've taken this leadership role and this initiative to do this. And of course, I would be more than delighted to cooperate with you, whatever, to respond to your questions and also to anything you think would be helpful to the public. So Thank you for asking me.
Thank you so much. I can't wait for this session and the sessions to come. So a little background about me. My awakening journey started around 2014 when I was doing my PhD at McGill University in electrical engineering. So when you're doing your PhD, you learn how to do the research independently. So I started to do the research on my field. Then in those 6 years, I had more questions about life, about myself, life purpose. So I kind of started doing my own research, and my soul seeking journey started. So it was not an aha moment for me, but the awakening started like a slow journey, and it's like it's upgoing right now. And every day I start to learn about myself, the cosmos, the spirituality, and thank God, around 2019, I came across Dr. Sarfarazi's work, and everything sounds familiar to me. So I felt like I know this information, but this is a confirmation deep down that these are true. So, and then I read Doctor's slides. I got a lot of more knowledge and insight about what's going on and why we are here, what's happening. So then I realized that I need to be a part of the group and the part of these teachings. And I had so many questions. So I contacted the doctor, and he kindly agreed to have some sessions with me so I can have more questions about different topics. So hopefully we can cover some of those questions today, and on next sessions with different topics. So doctor, please give us a little background about yourself. I know a lot of people already know you, know your work, but for the people who might see this for the first time, please introduce yourselves, and then we'll move on with the topic and the questions.
Thank you. Well, just very briefly, I've had some academic and scientific background, which I believe everything was very purposeful and prepared me to a point to be able to understand the mechanics of cosmos and universe, and also led me into energetics and consciousness, and put me where I am right now. Just very, very briefly, initially I started with structural and mechanical theory, and the very first thing that I was so enamored with, which I couldn't understand at the time, was vibration theory, which, as you can understand, our local consciousness is vibration. It's local consciousness vibration, the quantum consciousness vibration. So I really, I could say as an undergraduate level, I excelled in vibration, took 5 courses. I mean, it's very unusual for any university to teach 5 courses. Some of the vibration courses were already at advanced masters of even PhD level. Anyway, I finished all my bachelor's there in Sussex and came to United States and continued on, was identified as a structural engineer, which I never thought myself as an engineer. But so I continued with master's and then PhD with structural engineering. And again, I was so enamored with basically vibrations, structural dynamics, which uses vibration, and also with materials, a variety of things. Of course, initially you look at this civil engineering type materials, structural materials, concrete, which is of no interest, but composites, all this kind of stuff. Anyway, so, but just about 6 months before getting my PhD, I noticed that my knees are knocking. It's just, I don't want to get the PhD. And my advisor professor was also the head of department at NSF, thought that, called me into the office and said, Wilson, are you crazy? You're going to be done in 6 months. And I was actually a teaching assistant. I used to even teach his courses, the ones that I was registered in. I used to help him disseminate the information. He would give me the lectures. I would go and put it on the thing. It was amazing. I was a student. I was teaching, But anyway, so I had a very, very good situation with Dr. Gauss, bless his soul. But then after that, I felt like, no, I want to learn about more abstract mechanics. I want to understand abstract science, not, structural theory is kind of structural mechanics or structural engineering is more of an application type thing. Anyway, to cut the story short, I moved into, finally ended up at University of Illinois, and I started in continuum mechanics and material science. And then eventually I came up actually with the theory of micromechanics, which I introduced it actually to the world. In fact, there was a problem in my defense. They said, who are you to name a new area of studies? Because mechanics existed, but micromechanics didn't exist. And micromechanics is actually just a marriage between material science, which is microscopic, kind of qualitative account of things, and continuum mechanics, which is more of a mathematical modeling based on macroscopic theory. You know what I'm saying? So I married them both together, and then anyway, I came up, and the subject was just to understand basically in materials how cracks develop. And I chose crystalline solids, which is amazing because crystallinity is something we need to understand. Crystalline energy, all this stuff is what this is all about. Everything in my life, everything, not just from education, after that, getting married, having children, whatever my role I played as a father, whatever. When I go back, even if it didn't make sense at the time, and people didn't think it makes sense at the time, like leaving George Washington just before getting your PhD, or leaving as a professor at Georgia Tech to follow my wife to go and see her dreams, but I think it was on soul contract. You know what I'm saying? I came to facilitate that. So, and before she passed away, she told me that with utmost, it would be really satisfactory that thank you for, basically giving me the chance to live my life on this planet the way I wanted. And she became a very good doctor, eye surgeon. Came from actually a farming background, didn't have much, it was very intelligent, very smart, but didn't have much belief in herself, it was very, very humility, but to the kind of a default. And as you know, being a Persian, we Persians, we don't back out, we take the challenge, and we never think anybody's better than us, you know what I'm saying? And we always move up to the challenge. And I mean, look at yourself, as an apprentice, whatever you call yourself, right away you want to come in and give a service to humanity. Not just about you learning, it's about relaying that to other people. That's ambitious. That's ambitious in the right direction, in a much spiritual direction. So anyway, that's the story of that. Like, those people who have not have been acquainted with me. By the way, I want to tell you this after I, finished my PhD in micromechanics and was a professor at various universities, University of Illinois, etc. I'm sorry, Maryland, and I'm back to George Washington University, and then Georgia Tech and all that. I came to a conclusion, this doesn't satisfy me to just, get grants and write papers and look important, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And even I had positions actually at Georgia Tech, but I would interface with a lot of CEOs who gave a lot of money. And they couldn't understand the vice president or president, people who really paid and brought me from University of Maryland. they couldn't understand why I don't come up to this thing, feel good about myself, you know. And that did feel good about myself, but I like to be in my office. Anyway, I got very interested in quantum mechanics. So I taught myself quantum mechanics and taught myself plasma physics. And I didn't know where I was going. And I was very much into aliens, into stars. I remember my daughter, who's an attorney now, you know, she's in New York. She was telling me, she came in there one time, yelled at me and said, "Dad, we are living on Earth, and you're always in the in the stars. And you know, what is this? You know, all about, you know." And it was all about that evolution, things like this, very fundamental, understanding things from the fundamental level. This is why I'm telling you, as purpose to do that. And in 2011, my clarion call came in, which basically came to me in the form of, you know, if I could have to recite that back, is when I was in Peru, in Titicaca, and Lake Titicaca, and it came to me, write. I said, write what? Write the book of creation, which actually I'm going to start writing. It's going to be several volumes, everything about creation, from cosmos to universe to humanity to everything. Even we're going to continue on with negative aliens and artificial intelligence and all that stuff. I've published quite a bit. There's a lot of it I've written, I haven't published, but hopefully they're going to be done. If God wants me, I will leave that book of creation for humanity someday, not books of creation. So anyway, that's where we are. And I had the clarion call to start really, I had an awakening, and the awakening was horrendous. It's just like, what is happening to me? And the first thing that came to me was the word holographic. I said, what the heck holographic? What's holographic? And it came to me, your life is holographic. Your consciousness is holographic. And then it came to me, it's like, is that a dream? I don't exist. This is all a fantasy, which is not. Holographic, it's just the way that God's mechanics, consciousness mechanics works. It does not mean it's hologram, just like Elvis Presley being on that thing with his guitar, and you can walk through him and punch him, and he's not there. Or Michael Jackson. It's not that hologram. It's real. It's real. We are energetic people. We're dynamic, which we exist through this quantum vibrational mechanics, and we're real energies. We come from God. So anyway, we can talk about those more as the questions arises. But here I am. So for the past 10 years, 11 years, maybe almost going to 12, I've been in service, and I've tried to teach humanity. And I used actually the wrong platform, which was Facebook, because I've been always having challenges with them. And they don't, either it streams too much, it bottlenecks, so they cut me off. They have always tried to do that. They don't tell me this, they do it behind my back.
Yeah.
And today a lady was calling me and said, look, I'm just there, you know, I'm trying to share your stuff, and Facebook says you can't share. Why can't I share your stuff? I don't understand. I've had so many stories from different people.
The censorship, like in the past 2 years, has gone wild. And the thing is, even on YouTube, because the videos like this, it's going to be published on YouTube, but we have to be very careful of what we say. If we trigger some words, we get censored, or we get, like, you know, warnings. So
fortunately, I have never been told that I do inappropriate things and get banned for a week, month, or whatever. Actually, Facebook behind the scene, the whole negative aliens treat me with a lot of respect. They don't like me, but they treat me with respect because I don't cross the line.
yeah.
I tell the truth. They know I'm telling the truth about them, so they can't. And they may say, well, what they're trying to do is just to quieten me.
Yeah.
Not getting viral. You know what I'm saying? Because, I don't want to brag or anything. Those people who are familiar with me, some of my stuff could get really viral because what else is there?
How about we start with our today's topic, which is about ascension. I think a lot of people have a lot of questions because this is the word that we are hearing, especially in the past 2 years after the pandemic and the Great Awakening. We are hearing about, yeah, we are going through ascension. The Mother Earth is going to ascend too. So some people will make it, some won't. So that's a lot of questions about ascension, which hopefully we can cover this today. But my first question will be, like, generally, would you please give us the basic fundamental information about ascension, what we are going through collectively, and how about the Mother Earth, what's happening, and yeah, then we'll proceed with the other questions.
Well, actually, ascension is part of the consciousness mechanics and the organic life system of God. Okay. The whole cosmos runs based upon what I refer to as a cosmic clock. There's a cosmic clock. Okay. And the clock of as it conjures the thought, it has an element of time. Okay. So, and that's that local consciousness vibration that I mentioned. You vibrate in time. Okay. Your life experiences through time. So all this nonsense that you've heard in this metaphysics, or you want to be gurus, time doesn't exist. Time, they don't even know they don't even know the definition of time. These people, they don't. If you ask them, what does time mean? What does time mean? In any language you want, in any lame, or layman language, they can't say it. It's a very elusive thing for humanity, right? But ascension is what it is. It's just actually what we deal with is ascension. It's a universal ascension, or ascension within a universal system. We live in an Abaddon universe, which is a very, very small part of the entire cosmos. And if you want to understand what cosmos is, it's really cosmos is the body of the primate creator. It's all there is. All there is God. And you're a constituent part of that. In fact, God has, think about it this way, has disseminated its quantum of energy through the action or act of creation. God basically exploded on itself, and its consciousness energies, which is the energy of God, crystalline consciousness, omniscient energy, which is very, very coherent and communicative and all that stuff, coherent and crystalline and intelligible consciousness, and threw it all over what became its body, that's the cosmos. And we are sentient beings that have a little cluster of these energies, and that becomes really essentially our spirit, if you want to think about it in terms of all these things, religious or physics or whatever. That's your spirit. It's the quantum of energy, your quantum of energy. Okay. So anyway, going back to the question of ascension before I get too much into quantum mechanics and of consciousness. So what in the modern universe is that it occupies 12 dimensions, which is actually going all the way up to 18 dimensions now. But 12 dimensions plus 3 dimensions outside of it, which is the realm of rishis, who see the affairs of the species, the beings, including humans, within the bottom universe. Okay. There are 12 dimensions within the bottom universe. And these 12 dimensions are divided into 4 harmonic universes. And each harmonic universe is composed of 3 holographic time dimensions or consciousness dimension. These dimensions are discrete systems, planes, domains, within which you anchor your consciousness. And the more, and they stretch all the way from God to the outer cosmos, okay? Now, universe is already at the outer edge. We're in the dimension 1 to 12. I have shown there are 356 discrete dimensions. By discrete dimensions, think about there are these spheres that are concentric. Each one has its own radius, and the radius is actually a measure of time. In fact, a radius, 1 over radius is the curvature, and the curvature of a space-time is the measure of frequency that you talk about. And that's also, it's related to the speed of quantum vibration, okay? Anyway, again, I have a tendency to get too much into this, but ascension means that you have to increase your frequency. And you can also, by the way, talk about light quotient, because the consciousness of God, the energy of God, comes to us in the form of light. And light is electromagnetic energies. And electromagnetic energies, two fields that are perpendicular to each other, what I refer to as the orthogonality principle of creation, okay? So anyway, going back to this, if your frequencies reaches a certain threshold value, you fit within that curvature, and you can anchor yourself in that, and you become an indigenous of that dimension, okay? So remember, these are stretched all the way from God to the outer of cosmos, outer realms of cosmos. And the universe is right in the first 12 dimensions, and there are 356 dimensions I mentioned. We can prove that, okay?
Yeah.
And so what's happening, ascension means that you increase your frequency or your light quotient, and you transmigrate, and your quantum energy go to the next level and anchor themselves there. So you rebirth yourself, your birth certificate or birth transduction. Let's say it's in the first harmonic universe, let's say the third dimension, and then you ascend and you anchor yourself at the fifth dimension, which is in the second harmonic universe.
So a major question that comes up, what happens to the fourth dimension? We skip, or like, why we go from third dimension to fifth dimension, like we pass through fourth dimension, why we don't anchor there?
Yeah, you have actually the dimensions or in a series of odd and even, okay?
Yeah.
And it actually, if you want to understand, is that the space-time dimensions are formed in a dual nature, dual manner, okay? This is what I've called it dualism principle of creation, okay? So everything is created in double. That's why there's so much talk of your twin self, because there is another one of you that's exactly like you. Of course, in terms of all this physiognomy and all this stuff, it's the opposite of you. So if you're a female, it's a male, okay? And there's a reason for that, okay? We can talk about that, that's a subject, you know. But anyway, it is kind of like you look at your mirror image. A dimensional system is like a mirror. It's a mirror that is a concave or convex, depending, you're looking at it like this, or you're looking at it like this. You know what I'm, this is concave, this is convex, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, so I have referred to these as the conjugate mirrored spacetimes. So the spacetimes are generated in double, okay? Now in one, the quantum of energy, the fabric of space-time goes, for example, counterclockwise. The other one goes clockwise. So these are simultaneously exist, and they're both equally valid. So while you're vibrating in here, going from counterclockwise to clockwise, the other one, if you look at what is it, the picture of this into the mirror, obviously when it's counterclockwise, you see it clockwise on this side. And if it's clockwise, then you see it counterclockwise. So you are considered part of the same thing, which is your spirit, your actually eventually goes to your seat of consciousness, okay? And then one of them is doing one thing and the other one's quite the opposite of it. They're mirrored form of it. You know what I'm saying? So basically you're doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. And so anyway, going back to this, that's usually how the dimensions also are arranged. So you go from 3 to 4. So you have intermediate dimensions. You go from matter to antimatter. By the way, matter is usually when, let's say, you have counterclockwise. You know, the quantum energy are going this way. Antimatter is going the other way, because when you look at its projection into the screen, it's obviously the other opposite. So you go between matter and antimatter. Actually, what you do, really, you jump in from one to the other and back and forth and back and forth, but you don't understand it. So you live as your twin self, and back to you, and back to your twin, back to you, back to your twin. Listen, all this stuff, that's why we call it holographic. Holographic gives the shape, gives it the morphogenetics, morpho, as form building, okay? If you really think about it, your quantum energy.
Yes.
Your quantum energy in the, whatever you want to think about it. You know what I'm saying? It's not void, but it's like in space-time, and you are free-flowing. When you free flow, you have your consciousness. If you congeal some of that energy, that means reduce the quantum speed. Quantum speed is like something that a liquid that solidifies, or a gas that liquefies, then solidifies, and whatever, it becomes like it slows down, slows down, slows down. And then you form your body, and you have a body.
So basically, fourth dimension is a transitionary dimension. Is it all the even dimensions are like that, or?
Because if you look at it, you go from 3 to 4, and then 5, and then there's 6, and then 7, and there's 8. You know, yeah. The things that are basically the even dimensions, or the antimatter dimension. Okay, they're between two matter dimensions. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And you still have a conjugate system. It's a little more complicated than that. If you want to think about it, actually, it's much more complicated than that. If you want to think about it, you have omni-Earth. You know what I'm saying? And these Earths, you have Earth that's spinning this way, then another one spins like it spins like it spins like. But there is another Earth that when it spins this way, it spins that way. That's the conjugate mirrored aspect of it. But it also has a series of parallel. So they all exist together. Because think about it, you throw this quantum energy out in there, and they're going to spin. Some of them are going to spin about this, some of them are going to spin like this. They're all over. Now, imagine you come in and through a kind of a sieve system, you know, like a sieve. Take all the ones that are in one direction, put them, assign them to this space-time, and the other one to that space-time. That, you know what I'm saying? In fact, you know, you have different aspects of yourself. There's not just one male, one female. There's 12 of you, 6 males, 6 females in harmonic universe 1. And when all these things come together, you find a single soul. In 2011, I introduced the concept of carousel of consciousness. You might want to get hold of one of those initial papers I wrote on quantum, fundamental of mechanics of consciousness, I called it. Then I wrote a bunch of others, quantum mechanics of consciousness and stuff like this. I can send you the stuff. They're all fundamental.
Is it the same as monad over soul, you say?
Well, monad is a conglomerate set of a lot of other 12 aspects become one expression. I call them aspects just to identify them. Aspect. There are 12 aspects in harmonic universe 1. When they all come together, they form one soul expression. But then there are 12 soul expressions in the 5th or harmonic universe 2. Okay? Now when those 12 come together, you form your monad. Okay. And there's 2 monads, because there's still law of gender polarity applies. So one should be female, one should be male, one matter, one antimatter, and all that stuff. So you have two oversouls. When the two oversouls come together, see, these things are, think about it this way, there's a wall between them. That's why they're different. They're all you. They're all your quantum energy. But when you apply a wall between them, you become soul aspect one, soul aspect two, soul. You know what I'm saying? It's like that mirror that I told you between, that's like a wall. That's like a time wall. And what happens in here, you don't see it there. You can only see an image of it. And what happens there, so they never even if they interface, like matter and antimatter, they interface all the time. You're sitting there, antimatter particles going through you. Your twin self is going through you, but you cannot, it doesn't interface with your core, with your atomic core. You know what I'm saying? So it goes through you. You've seen in these movies how you walk through the wall. Yeah. And basically it's like that, because they're not within the same dimensions. If they're not within the same dimensions, they're stealth to one another. Okay? And you could have two ways of being stealth. One is to change the quantum speed and jump to another cosmological dimensions, 356 until you get to God at the center of cosmos, okay? Which is the heart and brain of God. God is everywhere anyway. God is in us. We're in God. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you have to understand these philosophies. They're not philosophies, they're real. You have to get used to it. They haven't taught us like that. But so one way is to change the quantum speed. Go faster, faster. Your frequency gets higher. Frequency goes higher, in turn, your light quotient becomes higher. So you become brighter and brighter. You become less of a matter, antimatter thing, whatever in physicality, and become more free-flowing photons of light, which is actually in the form of biophotons. You know what I'm saying? Because they still have anchorage in physicality. Okay, they're not pure photons, but biophotons. Okay, which German actually Pop introduced that. And it's beautiful, very good. I've written about all this stuff. Look at the paper I wrote, We Are Beings of Light. It is pretty much the treatment, all you want to know on this planet, what that means, being of light. It talks about works of Pop and some Russian, scientists. Of course, these guys did this not with the reference to soul and spirituality, not even consciousness. They just did it as a physics, as a mechanics, all this stuff. They did experimentation, they showed things. Anyway, going back to your ascension, okay? So ascension is when your quantum speed is going to change. So you shift, you transmigrate to the next dimension. Mm-hmm. But within the same system, like harmonic universe 1, you can have a series of parallel and anti-parallel dimensions, which all it means, you spin about a different axis. So your axis of rotation changes. But since that change is called phase angle, you phase in and phase out. So you go boom to another. That's why you become 42, 43, 44, up to 12. For some of them, they're not 40 as a female. How can you say your word doesn't? I don't know if there's a male aspect of your word, but you know what I'm saying. There's 6 of you. So you see what I'm talking about, right? So those are in a different parallel dimensions, and they're having sojourners of life simultaneously with you. It's all you. It's all your seed of consciousness, and it fractalizes. Some of them stays in a 7th dimension, some 5th dimension, some, or I should really say, not to confuse you, harmonic universe 3, harmonic universe 2, harmonic universe 1, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. And all these 9 are physicality. Beyond that,
the term that higher self they always use is which one of these?
The term higher self is actually something that's higher than you. Remember, 12 of you makes a bigger one. Yeah. That could be your higher self. but it's not the higher self, because there's 12 of those become the oversoul. And even that's not enough. 2 of the oversouls becomes the avatar. So basically the avatar.
So we don't exist in the other harmonic universes? We just only exist in...
No, of course you do. And I tell you something that's very peculiar to people. Those are your future selves.
Mhm.
Remember what ascension is. You listen, life is a spiritual career. You know how you go on career to make money, have names and all this stuff?
Promotion. Yeah.
Promotion. This is your promotion.
Mhm.
You're getting closer to God. Getting closer to God, your consciousness increases. Your quality of life becomes better. You evolve. And even you can go from one physical system, which is Navadan, to the second higher universe. There are 7 such super universes. I've mentioned those, 84 dimensions. Beyond that, you become only energetic, but still you can spin faster to go to a higher dimension, closer to God, closer to God, closer to God, and become brighter and brighter and brighter. The knowledge, the essence of God is within you. It's in your morphogenetic system, but it's hidden. Its consciousness is not there unless you have awareness of it. You have to have attention span and awareness, then that consciousness activates. That consciousness is there. Are you with me? So you become more self-aware. You know what I'm saying? You self-discover. You self-discover. You're still God. Especially humans are very special because we are actually the safeguard for this universe. We are the attachment to God. So if anything goes away, we have the quantum genetic records of everything that exists in this universe. Any species, even reptilians, but this, it's within us. That's why humans cannot be annihilated. If we get annihilated, the whole Navadan universe is gone. Goes back to abyss. The reverse process of creation, how Navadan universe was created from abyss with the quanta of energy of higher dimensions coming in and shaping it and seeding it and forming it. You know what I'm saying? Now it's like, it's all gone. It becomes abyss, darkness, no light, no consciousness, no nothing. Even these negative aliens, morons, they can't exist without us. That's why they feed on us. That's why they know that. We are the electric plug that they connect to. They feed from us and they live. Yeah. And if we don't exist, imagine the whole electric system grid collapses. There will be darkness. Right?
A quick side question. Does ascension happens to negative entities too? No. For them is descending or
they used to be like us, but they became fallen. See, imagine you're connected to God through an umbilical cord. In fact, that umbilical cord is that timeline that you vibrate about. If you want to really understand what it is, it's like a spring. Go. Actually, you do this. You know, you helically, torsionally go in, helically, torsionally come out. Wine bottle that you try to outscrew. What is it? Screw out and then screw in. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So it's the same kind of an analogy if you want to use from mechanics. So
they went so far so that the umbilical cord kind of.
And I have described all these entropic, negative, positive karma. You might want to read those. They're all complete treatments of everything with mathematics, all of it. And so what's happening is that negative karma is when you deflect too much from God. And it's just like a spring. You can pull it. At some point, it's going to sever.
Yeah.
It's not endless, right? Okay. And that's what they did. They went away from ways of God, which is love, which is benevolence, which is all that stuff. So they stretched, and God was very tolerant. You know, it has the tolerance through a system that's created. It doesn't interface one-on-one per se. You know what I'm saying? They're all fail-safe, and they're all mechanics, and they're all laws that are put in place, and they always function without any exception. Okay, so these guys, these evil, you know, they started feeding on other. They started suppressing, oppressing through all kinds of conflicts, wars, killing, you know, enslavement, all this stuff, and they did everything that was against the law of one, law of God, and they accumulated negative karma. Negative karma. See, you know what happens when you hold a spring?
Yeah.
Imagine between two things. When you compress the spring, which means you're going towards God, what do? You collect energy in this spring. Now imagine you're sitting on top of the spring, or you're attached to the spring. If you let go of the spring, poof,
yeah,
a lot of energy, because you have saved all that energy, right? Now think that's really positive karma. I call this centropy, which is against entropy. Entropy means waste. Centropy means quite the opposite. It's like saving. Think about putting money in your savings account. Okay. Now, if you do it the opposite, entropy, negative karma, what are you doing? You stretch, 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 stretch. Now, when you're back here, you've exhausted your energies. And listen, the way we function is that we go back to God, we stretch, and we use energies of God, which is real. Real energy gives to real mechanical, whatever, deflective system. Okay? It's energy. You have to expend energy to do work. You know, it's fundamental. You're a PhD. I don't need to lecture you about all these fundamentals, right? Is that right?
yeah.
So what happens is that when it's exhausted, okay, no, what I was saying is that you go through a vibrational sequence. You vibrate out, you expand away. It's electric. You expand away. It's a male mechanism, sort of. You expand away, and you learn, and you self-discover, and you live your life, the sojourns of life, and all that stuff. It's energy to do consciousness, you know. That's why negative aliens have to plug in if they want the artificial intelligence, which is a counterpart of consciousness. It's not, you know what I'm saying? It's the artificial. They try to create artificial form. Now, when you contract back, you go back to God, and God replenishes it. So this umbilical cord is like an open loop system. You take away from it, and you come back, and you take more, and you come back. God is happy to do it, because you are like part of cellular part of God. When you live your life, God lives its life through you.
Yeah.
Just like every part of our body is conscious. Your kidney is conscious, your heart is conscious, every part of your body is conscious. You think you're conscious, but no, they're conscious too. They have their own consciousness. It's the same way. We have our own consciousness, and the whole gives to the consciousness of God, which is the whole oneness. Okay? So anyway, going back to this is that if something doesn't come back, and it stretches and it stretches and it stretches, and so it dissipates and it dissipates and it uses and it uses and it uses, it's going to come to a point that it runs out of everything. It has to self-consume. It has to eat itself. In metaphysics, they make this example of a serpent, which is very actually appropriate, that eats its own tail.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have anything else to eat. So it eats its tail until it comes all the way to his head, and it's gone.
Yeah.
So you have to self-consume. And that's what happened to the negative aliens. When they got severed, They absolutely had no chance of going back and contract.
Yeah. Another side question about negative aliens. How did they get this highly advanced AI technology? Were they like highly advanced beings at one time? So they evolved, they got all those knowledge and then they took it?
Actually, the negative came from higher universes. So they were even closer to God than we are. So they were actually angels of God at the one time.
Wow.
Because they were organic, they were just like us.
Yeah.
Through that, they acquired the consciousness, the knowledge of God, the consciousness mechanics or knowledge of God. But they got too big for their britches. They came to a point of, well, we are God ourselves. We don't need you. We can have our own, you know what, it's all narcissism, all nonsense. You see, those are, read my paper on the characteristics of negative aliens, and also read the other fundamental paper that I have said how they became parasitic. It will teach you a lot of stuff to avoid, because you don't want to be that. In fact, the 7, so to speak, deadly sins is what negative aliens exercise to become negative, to become, and they brought it to us now. They call it 7 cardinal sins. You know, everything that separates us from each other: greed, competition, or jealousy. You know what? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
They're all anthropic. They're all self-destructive, self-consuming. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, now to answer your question, how they had this knowledge. So when they got severed, they held on to it, and they said, they had 2 possibilities. Either they self-consume and then they go and they're done. Okay, everything finally reverts back to God.
Yeah.
It's the principle of conservation of energy, which I have reiterated, that is that anything that expands away from God must eventually, inevitably return back or contract back to God. It's the same. I put it in a different fashion, which is much more cosmological than what you've seen in physics, okay? So anyway, so they had the knowledge, they started, not that, then they had the knowledge and the technology and all this stuff. They started digitizing some of this knowledge and they kept it. They recorded it. So they have to come with AI technology, and they learn more and more and more. Now, when they came to our universe, they got kicked out of the other universes because they were nuisance. They were just, because what happens was this: when they became fallen, they started feeding on organic consciousness beings, real offsprings of God. And so they got kicked out. And it came to a point that God ordained and said, get rid of them. They're no good. It's just kind of like a part of the body of God gets infected. You try to fix it, which they have tried so much, God knows, with these reptilians in this universe. Try to bring them back to God. Come. But they are too narcissistic. And they've accumulated so much through plunder and all this kind of stuff, they don't want to give up. And although really God doesn't have rules, God's rules are good for you.
Yeah.
It maintains the order in cosmos. It's not a military type order. It is good. I mean, it's good for you.
That's the law of one, right?
Law of one, yes. Interconnectedness, unity consciousness, unconditional love, compassion, empathy, and service to all, among some other things you can just come up with. You know what I'm saying? But those are the main ingredients. Every one of them is good for you.
Yeah.
This is why I'm trying to teach people unconditional love is not just charity, it's not just giving it away. Because you want to understand this, think of unity consciousness. Unity consciousness is like a assembly, a linkage of springs. They're all connected to each other, like a chain. Chain has links. You are one of the links. So if this chain is strong and benefits from it, you as a link within that constituent part of that, you benefit from.
Yeah.
People don't understand this because negative aliens have been pushing this to us. Think of for number one, that it comes to a situation that they become rotten to the core, humanity.
So
That's
they're in the process of being evicted from our universe too, right?
yes.
So where will they go?
They're going to be put in a bubble.
They're not going to another universe to destroy that?
I wrote 2 papers on this. There are actually 4 parts. The other 2 I haven't published because it's about Ascension. The other 2 were about negative aliens and also the cabals, the evil ones. If you like to, it says criterion for Ascension, part 1, part 2. And 3 and 4, I should go back and publish. There's so many things I've written. But the time was not right. So I said, well, wait until we get to the Ascension level and then I'm going to publish them. I wrote them, though. They're all there. Anyway, going back to this, you go in there, Eurodante or whatever it is, you go in there, I've explained it, all this bubble, where it is in the universe and all that. Pretty much you put them in there, quarantine them. So they can't reach you to consume your energies, to possess you, to all this AI technology that they use to do that. And then they're going to self-consume until they die. And what a way to go, because they're going to eat each other up.
Yeah.
They can't have anything from outside. So they're inside. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's the way that in 2012, I recall actually you were waiting, and there were spaceships in the solar system going all the way to the outer stretches of solar system, parked in there, waiting to see what God decides about this universe, because it could have folded. You know, universes fold. They're experiments in consciousness, so they fold. The energy go back to God and then get recirculated and whatever.
So those were higher advanced beings from other universes. They came and observed us.
Well, yeah, there were a lot of them were more advanced in terms of their space travel technology and all this stuff. But these were species that were waiting, because if the humans are going to be gone, so are they. Remember, the universe folds. That's the end of their lifetime too.
That's why a lot of them are now assisting humans.
These are not the same reason for them. There are benevolent. I'm doing it right. We're all have to be considered ourselves the same things, you know, on different levels. So some of these, they're just weren't anchored in here. They're not earthlings. So they were from higher dimensions, some of them from out of the universe, like the Aurora Light, Paleodorians, all these, you know, Ra family, Melchizedeks, all these things. They're all from higher, you know, the Azurites, you know, you name it, all this, you know, from 12th dimension, but some of them are from next universe. Aurora is from next universe up to 24. Some have come from, they go to the raw lineage, it's going to 48th dimension. By the way, see, we had 12, and then 3 outside were the rishis, that they were the guardian founders. They were the ones who had, now the rishis have moved to the 6th harmonic universe. So the universe is now affiliated with the 6th harmonic universe. It's moved more towards God, more light, to eradicate the problem of negative elements. It's more potent energy. That's why have you noticed outside there are no chemtrails anymore?
But here in Montreal, I see them still.
When?
Yesterday I was outside, I was looking at the camp, but I was thinking maybe these are like the positive things. Maybe they're now want to cancel some of the effects, because I didn't have the same feelings that I always have when I say chemtrail. So I thought maybe these are like.
Are you sure they're chemtrails? Because there are such things called selves. They're 4-dimensional beings. These are air elementals. Their job is to clean the environment, okay? And they're air elementals. In fact, they're the ones who've been fighting all this chemtrails because they move in and diffuse it, they, neutralize it. Because I'm going to tell you this, Florida is one of the worst places, especially where I am in chemtrails, because they're older people live here and they want to kill everybody. We're not good to them because we don't pay taxes. Social Security, they have to pay for a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I'm saying? They want to, and then they can't feed on us as much as they can feed on a younger person with the more sexual energies and all this kind of, or even life energies. You know what I'm saying? So, Cabal wants to get rid of the older people. They're told by the negative energies to get rid of them. That's why there's been a lot of chemtrails here. And I'm telling you this since 2022. I've been watching very carefully because I couldn't even go out for a walk. I would go for a walk, 5 minutes, I had to run back. I would smell the chemtrails. There were chemtrails all over.
And I get headache usually.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, they're gone. Chemtrails are gone.
You think the things that I saw yesterday, and they might not be chemtrails, or?
Chemtrails are very clear. You see a plane going and you see the stuff coming out. Did you see planes going?
No, but I saw the trails after, but they
don't know what that is. That, see, if there's no planes going, where do the trails come from? They have to be dispensed by a mechanical system. It's just AI technology. It's AI, it's all, basically. Even not AI, it's like physical, it's just, I don't see any planes. I saw a little bit of streaks the other day. There were like lines, but I don't think they were chemtrails. Chemtrails are clear.
Okay.
A very clear one.
Next time I pay more attention.
And it discharges it, and then they widen.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you see clouds move in and neutralize it. Those are sylphs. Then move in, but they don't. The sylphs don't matter anymore because plasma lights are doing. What's happening? I think the chemtrails cannot last in plasma light. The plasma lights are very high. I don't know if you've had this or not. There's a lot of problems and back problems, neck problems, and all this. It's all plasma light because they're just compressing you like this. This ascension has not taken place for at least. Okay, first of all, I don't know if I mentioned that to you or not. I talked to you about cosmic clock, and then in universe it also, manifests that way. The way that it manifests is that every 26,566 years, it actually flips on its axis, and that's the time that you need to go to the next harmonic universe. Okay, all right. So the beings that are here, they basically should go there. Now, for the past 8 ascension cycles, which is over 208,000, almost 212,000 years, the negative aliens, the Anunnakis and all that stuff that came in here through 26,000 years ago was the worst, that when there was the Luciferian rebellion, all this kind of stuff. And 75,000 years ago is when the Nephilims came, and it goes back and back. Anunnakis came about 400,000 years, but from 208,000 years ago, 12,000 years ago, they haven't let humans expand their consciousness. We have to naturally learn through sojourns of life and learn and expand our frequencies, frequential energies, like questions. So we're ready, and when the frequency reaches that level, we just transmigrate. We go and think about it. A squirrel, look, it's the first time I'm thinking about this, is on this branch and is one of those flying squirrel and jumps in the higher branch. That's exactly what you do. You go and it migrates and you anchor yourself there, then anchor yourself, more until finally you ascend out of the 12 dimensions, and then you go, and then you, after that, it all depends on what soul contracts you can have, and then you can come back as an ascended masters, or etc., etc. You can move to the next universe. You can go to the adjacent universe, experience similar things, but a different thing, to just have variety of stuff. Or you move to the next harmonic universe, next universe, higher universe. So you go to the, one of the 7 super universes.
So you mean that some individuals, they kind of managed to ascend, but at collective level, they didn't let us ascend for 8 cycles, right? But there were some individuals who could ascend, and or no?
There talks of some. I don't even, to be honest with you, I don't even know if anybody ascended. I mean, these Kutumi and Saint Germain and all this stuff, they're all made up by them. They're 4th dimensional ascended masters. They're all AI. They're basically, see, they poured a lot of nonsense when the Ascension movement came to confuse us.
Yeah.
And they do that. That's the biggest problem we have right now. That it's a challenge because the they fight it, and the way they do it is, I call this paltering, is that they take some. You mentioned something about University of Earth. You mentioned something about, that's really nonsense. Okay, the whole concept of duality is nonsense, not dualism. Duality, good versus evil. It's because evil is not supposed to exist. These reptilians, this is artificial intelligence. They're not part of the God's consciousness mechanics. So now they're legitimizing it because we live in a blended reality. It's an AI contaminated, the AI that's contaminated the organic consciousness reality. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And they create timelines. They've mimicked everything with God's mechanics, and they've tried to, you know what I'm saying, duplicate it and reverse it and all this stuff. And I don't want to get into that. I can talk to you about mechatronic reversal and all that. So much.
About, you mentioned something about timeline. I've heard that there was a timeline that humanity didn't make it to the Ascension, and they kind of fall into the negative aliens agenda. So is it true?
Yes, of course. They've been bringing down. See, negative aliens have been controlling us more and more and more, to an extent that 5,500 years, they totally tried to destroy our history.
Yeah.
Who we are, where we come from. We became coming from apes and all this nonsense. Okay? There's nothing really in the library that is older than 5,500 years. The stuff that now has come out that we say, okay, Atlantis, Luciferian, these are some of the stuff that the Guardian founders and the higher beings who are helping with the Ascension, Arcturians, Palladians, they're 28 star nations at least, that they're helping with this. The Guardian founders, the ones who created us, and also the ones who are helping there are new Guardian founders like the Aurora, who are giving their lights to us to re-encrypt our system, get rid of all this black goo and all this stuff, and ascend us. Now we have found out about a lot of this stuff, a lot of information is coming, more history is getting read, and people are remembering all the records of the galactic wars with the negative aliens, destroying us at Tara, Gaia, their invasion to the Nevada universe and all this stuff. They were all hidden. Some Illuminati had limited knowledge of some of those, even they guarded at the highest level. You have to be 33 Freemason and higher to even get into this kind of conversations. You know what I'm saying? So they have hidden it from us. We have not had the history. So they've always tried to obstruct our expand, because we have a potent inclination towards expansion, because that's in our nature.
Yeah.
That's what our life is about. Learn
Yeah.
through knowledge, whatever. There's different ways you can do that. Expand
Yeah.
your frequencies. Wow. I mean, the Guardian founders have given us, the higher dimensional beings have given us. I mean, there's a lot of channels at the year of 2011, 12. I remember I used to read about 150 different channels a day. But they were authentic. They were all these Arcturians that came in, and they were all saying good things. There was nothing, you know. But
Yeah.
then the negative aliens through Galactic Federation of Light, so to speak, which is nonsense, GFL, they started putting the counterpart of stuff. And as I told you, it's based on paltering. They give you some knowledge
Yeah.
and then they distort that now. They appeal to your senses that you can believe, and then they put hypocrisy, superstition, lies, deceptions, and they derail you towards where they want you to be, so
Yeah.
they can control you.
So this Galactic Federation of Light, does it exist, or the whole thing is a scam?
No, the Galactic Federation Light is actually, well, Light is not Galactic Federation, but it is it's on the galactic level, you know, and the reptilians and also Anunnakis are the two main branches that control it, and those are the negatives. The negatives.
Wow.
Oh yeah,
So the Ashtar Command, have you ever heard of that?
that's part of the same
So
same
they're
thing.
all negative aliens.
They're just making it look very good. They put very careful things based on the old histories and stuff, but you know they derail you and they make you believe in all this stuff. And there are people who used to. I mean, I have told people little by little they they got distracted from it, but there were people coming to our groups that galactic version like this guy, and now they realize that because there you can see the lies after a while. See, when your frequency goes up, you see through the.
Yeah.
I've been doing a series of I don't know. Actually, I'm going to be posting right after this again. There were 9 slides I wrote about this. That basically, when your frequency goes up, you see through layers like onion peeling and onion. You can see layers of lies and different energetic levels. You know, either that some of them are negative aliens, and some of them, unfortunately, are some of these self-proclaimed gurus. And some of them, that's even more sad, is not yourself, but could be people like you who get knowledge and then they get too much confidence in themselves. And instead of having humility and stuff, they think, oh, they know it all and this and this. And instead of really, really submitting to the law of one and stuff like this, they use these as cliche. They don't walk the walk or walk the talk. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
That's equally sad.
Yeah.
Equally. That's why you don't find too many people with really inclination towards, you know, unconditional love. It still is a cliche. Or should I do this? I'm the number one. They
Yeah.
don't say it. They keep telling you all these goody, goody, goody things. But when they go back to their own lives, no, it's all about them.
Yeah.
Come up around. There's a lot of hypocrisies out there.
Yes.
Hypocrites, you know, there's a lot of hypocrites.
It's very confusing. A lot of misinformation, especially in the spiritual and truthers communities. So in the sad part is that the past 2 years we were kind of alone because most of the people are asleep. They believe in the jab, and it's good for them, and they believe in the pandemic and everything. So we were the minority, and we were we came to this channel. We find these channels, and they're talking about Galactic Federation of Light, Ashtar Command, Council of Nine. They have this positive messages. Humanity is going through ascension. They give us very nice messages, so we get some hopes.
It's very control. Actually, that's that. I have these papers. You want to read it? That there's Melchizedeks are the group of fallen entities who were actually angels of God and from higher dimension, but they fell just like the Luciferian rebellion, they fell, and then they became cohorts of negative aliens under Galactic Federation lights or whatever, or the reptilians and Anunnakis, and they started putting all this nonsense ascension thing, 5D ascension. It's called 5D ascension. Actually, ascension is not 5D. Ascension is anywhere. If you can raise your frequency, you're going to go to the 12th realms. You're going to go out of this universe. So it's not 5D. It's actually called the New Ascension, I think.
New Age.
Plan B. Plan B.
Plan B.
I have papers you should read about that to understand some. I talked about some of the aspects, not too much about Galactic Federation, but I've talked about the self-proclaimed gurus, and there's another paper. So I've explained some of this, and I've written a bunch of stuff that, I can't publish everything. Just write. I never get time to scratch my head. And recently, with all this doing the institute and doing this and that, I wish I had more time.
Yeah. So we only have 30 minutes left. I have so many questions. So let's go back to Ascension.
If I may just elaborate one other thing on Ascension, which I just put the information out. In fact, I haven't even done. I've done 3 or 4. Watch out for the 9 slides to get the gist of it, but I will tell you what it is. You mention all this stuff that there were the negative alien, the Galactic Federation, and the self-proclaimed gurus, and there's all this stuff. That's all okay. We know about that. The sad thing is the people who actually think they're benevolent and all this stuff, but it's still, they cannot submit to law of one. They say they do, but they don't do it. This is very sad.
Yeah.
Because if I have you, Fatih, after all this stuff, you're going to be a hypocrite. And you're going to go out there and it's about me. That's very sad.
Yeah.
Where are we going to get to unity consciousness?
Yeah, it's service to self still. Yeah, exactly. So in some of the slides you mentioned December of year 2022. This year's December is the deadline for Ascension. What will happen? And you also said that you don't have to die to ascend. So can you elaborate on that?
What is happening is that starting off year 2022. Okay, this ascension was a 2 5-year period for a total of 10 years, starting 2012. Because in 2012, formally, the Merchizal fix, the old ascension hosts were kicked out, and the Guardian founders themselves came in and took over the ascension process. Because the other one, as you said, through Galactic Federation Light and all this stuff, was lies and cheats and, what I'm saying, hypocrisy, superstition, manipulation, all this stuff. So anyway, so 5-year period from 2012 to 2017. See, look, our frequencies have been very, very low. To raise that frequency through bombarding of light, which is the mechanism of ascension. I mean, there is the educational system and learning and accreting that, all this knowledge and all this stuff, and hopefully integrating them, but through plasma lights that comes to us, first from sun, then it was from holographic beams and all celestial activations, and then finally through auroral light that came from the core of Earth, coming all the way from neutron window from outside this universe. The auroral light don't belong to this universe, they're outsiders. But now they've become guardian founders because now they've become our helpers. Actually, they're the main ones. Their light is extremely amazing. It just eats goo. It dissolves goo like acid, okay? And goo is the fundamental material for AI. We're carbon-based. They took carbon and they changed it, and finally they make goo out of it. You know what I'm saying? And goo is what the AI basically resides in. It's that like the substrate or whatever you want, you know, essence for all that stuff to manifest in physicality, you know. So anyway, going back to this, there were 2 5-year periods from 2012 to 2017. So they poured all this energy coming, variety of different lights in the galactic windows, and all this opened up and poured energy, poured energy. Sun got a lot of this energy and brought it into us through all kinds of plasma emissions, and you know you know what I'm saying, you know, all the stuff. I wrote a bunch of papers and those you can go and read about the sun, how that did. But so they increased, and they, I mean, some people, look, these lights, they come in and knock at your door. You either let them in, and if you let them in, they come in, and then they little by little, they work on you from the quantum level, and they change it. They actually, what they do is just to jump up your frequency. It's like they put a little torch under your quantum of energy and start spinning faster. In essence, that's what's happening. Your frequency goes up, your light quotient comes up. You become less dense. You lose density, you gain light. There are 2 things. I mean, read the congealment versus free flow that I talked about. Free flow is consciousness, is light. Congealment is physicality, matter, antimatter, and you know what I'm saying, physical form.
The first 5 years, like these lights came in. So
2017 was the peak of the holographic beam that came to holographically, you know, activate you. Okay, it wasn't enough. But it wasn't supposed to be just 5 years, 10 years. 22 is the end of the 2 years, the 10 years. And it was envisaged that by the end of 10 years, humanity is going to reach to that level of frequency, that the average frequency, the median frequency of the planet is going to reach the threshold for the 5, 7, whatever, and then we can have mass ascension. We can take, in other words, we are Earth. The logos, the planetary logos, okay, or the planetary brain is us, is our collective consciousness. And this is how it is. It's not just, it's all consciousness. It's all energy.
yeah.
So you see this planet and this and that. It is just part of it's a mechanism of quantum energy in action. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, what I was trying to say is that
so the planet Earth is going through this too. It's going through the ascension anyways.
actually you are Earth. Earth is you. When we ascend, Earth ascends in collective form. So otherwise you can just part with this world, and then the quantum energy out there does whatever it does. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But people didn't die. The people who were high frequency, they didn't die because they had to raise up. People came from higher universes even to jump up our frequency, to help us, to lift us up. Because, you know, in year 2012, if you even looked at planet Earth, it was dim, it was black. It became brighter, brighter. After the World War II, it became bright because they send more light to the planet. But in 1987, the new movement started. And 2000, year 2000 Y2K was one thing, and then 2012 was the end of the Ascension period, new start of the new period. You know what I'm saying? And
so
that's what
2012 was the year that determined if humanity is gonna make it or not, right? They
end of the, remember I told you 26,566 years. That was the end of it.
okay.
12, 12, 12. was the end of the line. We had to be ascend. We had to ascend, but we didn't have the prerequisite condition, right? So they started working on us through education, through all this, sending us plasma light. They changed the Ascension plan. They removed the Melchizedeks, the Guardian Founders had presence. They actually all kinds of, and they've been actually in process before that, indigos, star seeds, as well as guardians, in here, planned to do this, and ascended masters and all this, they're true ascended masters, not this nonsense we hear from Aliens in the fourth dimension. So anyway, they came in here, their frequency is high, it increases the overall average, right?
Yeah.
So it was in vain because people just couldn't. I mean, the conditioning of the negative aliens. I mean, you still see it around.
Yeah.
You still see it around. So anyway,
So
2022 was supposed to be end of the line.
okay.
Earth transmigrates, pulls out of the harmonic universe 1 and goes to harmonic universe 2. And it also has layers that are bigger, goes to Gaia. Or actually Tara moves to Gaia, the way it works. Because it all exists in multidimensional, it's all multidimensionality. Earth doesn't just exist here. The third dimension, the HU1 Earth is Earth. HU2 Earth is Tara. HU3 Earth is Gaia. And HU4 Earth, which was destroyed totally, is Armatena. Goes up to the 12th dimension. You know what I'm saying? Which is all energetic. It's all silhouettes of light that, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's been slow. It's been very slow. Now, what was
does a major catastrophic event should happen for the, because I've heard that the major solar flash happens every 26 years, 1,000 years, and it destroys AI technology and all the electronics on the planet and might kill a lot of people who are not ready to ascend. Is this true?
To a certain way, it's a modification. There are some people who are not ascend. And these people will drop their bodies and then they will go, they keep their memories. It's not like reincarnation. They don't reincarnate. They don't start from birth again. That's gone. That was all negative aliens manipulation. But they appear on different spheres. In fact, they came from there. They might have come from Mercury or Venus or some distant planet, whatever. Negative aliens brought a lot of souls in here and put them in human bodies. You know what I'm saying? Because this was a prison planet, you know? So they're going to go in there and they're not ready to ascend. They still need a lot of learning. They need special education. So they're going to die. A lot of people you see, they die. They're around you, they die. Those are the ones. It's good. They're going to the next level of what they should be, free of the aliens, negative aliens, but they start on the real expansion, not like the way we have been, it's been negated for us. You know what I'm saying? Are you with me? So there are some of those. Then there are other people, the ones who are going to ascend, they're going to ascend with Earth. You're going to stay on the planet and you're going to transmigrate together. And when you transmigrate, there's going to be a 3D Bardo process that's called. It is ordinarily associated with death. When you have death, you go through a 3-day Bardo in which you review, and then your soul is supposed to have a new contract and see what are you going to do after this. You're going to ascend, you're going to go back to, you know, whatever, okay? Of course, the process has been very, very much, you know, distorted by negative aliens through all the, you know, soul recycling through the astral plane, and all this kind of stuff. Again, you can read about, written about all this stuff. So, but in the reality, there was a 3-day Bardo process, like the ones you were talking about that they died and ascended. They would have done that. If there was some Tibetan monk or something like this that would reach a higher frequency and they would die, they would drop their body, and then they would ascend to the fifth, seventh dimension, whatever they excel to it. They would go through a 3-day Bardo process in which they could be reviewed. They would review their old life, and they learn about all the stuff, and then they plan and get acclimated for a new thing. You know what I'm saying? A new beginning.
Is this a 3 day of darkness they talk about?
Actually going to be in sleep, in slumber. So it's
Oh,
like dark. You don't know what's going on. Whatever happens with Earth transmigrating, whatever's happening, it's during that 3-day process. And then you open your eyes and you're in the fifth dimension. You may
wow.
find yourself in the seventh dimension. You may find yourself in the ninth dimension. Those guardians, ascended masters that came in here, they'll go back to where they came from. What is it? The indigos, star seeds came from sixth dimension or whatever. They would go back. I mean, the indigos with star seeds could be from different places. They would actually go back also to their own spheres. They might have come from Sirius. You know what I'm saying?
So
Or
how about the ones that are like from Earth? Do they will be still together when they wake up and they feel like they're lighter, they have ascended?
they ascend, they come up, they have a new body because of you've gone through this morphogenetic not recycling, refining process. All the black goo is taken away from you. There's no shadow bodies. You're back into God's world as a God's being, offspring. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things you're going to find is that if you end up, let's say, in the fifth dimension, you're going to see that your gravity is different. The gravity is going to be different in there. So you weigh about 1/5 of what you did. So if you weighed 120, now you 100, now you're what, 20 pounds.
Like how about the Earth? Like, for example, like our house will be the same, like the streets will be the same.
Everything is going to go into energetic and then recongeal back. Okay. Now, it's hard to say. You start at the beginning, but then you build it. It's not like they put you in a new setting and everything's crystal and this. You got to do that yourself. Your self, what is it? Governance is very important. That's why people such as yourself, hopefully in the future, is going to be in a leadership position because you know better than others, because you have taken the initiative to do this. And you got to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And you're
So
going to work.
basically, everything collapses, and they have to rebuild everything.
It goes, if you transmigrate in energetic form. It's just like when you dream, that you transfigure, or you know what I'm saying? It's the same sort of process, but except there are three different things. There's transfigure and translocate, and then transmigrate. Transfigure is you leave your body and your soul goes and comes back. Okay. Translocate, you create a copy of your soul, so you have a presence in wherever you go. And transmigrate is just you totally go to energetic. You have no body anymore. The body drops completely. You are purely energetic, and then depends where you go. You may become an avatar. You don't really need. You don't have a light body. You're like a silhouette or orb of light, but you don't have to have flesh, bone, and stuff. But if you go in the fifth dimension, you're going to have that. It's going to be a lighter. You're going to be lighter both in terms of weight and both in terms of light quotient. It's going to be a brighter, lighter. In fact, what right now in our solar plexus is changing. That's probably you feel it. Sometimes you feel you get cold. unprecedented.
Mm-hmm.
It feels you're freezing, you're cold, you're in a 74 degrees, 70, whatever, 5 degrees wrong. I like it even hotter. I keep it at 75 and I'm freezing. You know what it is? Because you're accreting light. You know what I'm saying? At the cellular level, you know, you are gaining light, okay? And actually, you're dropping your quantum of your congealed quantum of energy, your bodily weight and stuff like this, you know. And the reason is that all the thing is concentrated on where it was solar plexus, and I call that the palace, your new palace of light. It's like a palace that it lights up your whole body. It's the central room. You won't have solar plexus anymore, chakra. You have this, and it's called also raw center because of raw.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, creator family of this world, you know, in this the modern universe. So anyway, going back to this, what were we saying? Yes, you feel very cold because all yours, and then your surface is left without energies, and you feel cold. Same thing happens when you eat. Have you noticed? I remember in Iran, especially when we used to have Sarfarazi, you know, when we
Yeah.
used to watermelon, cold
Yeah.
Sarfarazi shakhtim. You know, you remember that? I remember as a child, I used to get so cold, and I had to go in the sun. You
Yeah.
know, because what happens is that it all goes in your stomach. It's all the food, all energy is concentrated and goes in there and leaves the surfaces. You know, your skin becomes cold and you feel like, ooh, and then the energy has to move back into your extremities, you know? It's sort of like this. When you accrete, when you absorb the light, basically, you change into light and it goes and lights up your raw center. Okay. So anyway, when you wake up in there, you're gonna find that your light quotient has gone out tremendously. You're just a different person. You know, you're just different being. You have evolved. You have a new body. You have, of course, you worked at this. Now you have to keep those frequencies. If you don't keep the frequency, you're gonna drop down from HU3 or HU2. You have to maintain, because remember, it's kind of like being on a wheel, and you are on that wheel going around, going around. You have to maintain that frequency, that speed. If you don't, you're off of it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's very very important. That's why I'm saying being a hypocrite and talk about all these goodies and writing about it and all that, people talking about healing sessions and they're talking about they have direct connection with God, and good for them. I wish to God that is true because I want to see that. I'd
Yeah.
like to see that as my
Yeah.
unity consciousness
Yeah.
kind of, you know, but if they're hypocrites, they can't maintain the frequency because the frequency is not high. They
Yeah.
think the frequency is high, but it's not high. They're
Yeah.
just regurgitating things and they've
Yeah. The
learned
thing is that
to talk.
even if we don't ascend, continue our evolution without the negative aliens
Right.
interference, right?
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
You know, look, you can't think about it. I'm here or here or here in my path. You know what I'm saying? Because you're eternal. And if you're here, you will get here. You will get here.
Yeah.
And that has been the case without the negative alien. Except in the negative alien, they put you in there and I kept you in there, kept you in there, kept you in there. And then it deteriorated. And then they had to feed on you. And the only way they could feed on you is to bring your energies down. That means they have to give you pain, suffering, anger, violence, all these things that are deterrent to your You know what I'm saying? To your prosperity, to your security, to whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So basically, if the negative alien don't exist in your world, I would consider that like a heaven, even if I don't
It is.
ascend.
It
So
is. You don't
yeah.
have to see. There are some people who may like. Look, if you go to, I'm going to mention one thing to you that we can relate to. Some people like sex. They enjoy the sex, and if it's pure, godly, divine, organic sex, that's fine. God created us for procreation. Or it's not just the sex, it's the connection between the humans. Like, for example, I'm going to tell you this, Pleiadians like that. That's why they've stuck, they're staying in the fifth dimension. Because if you go, well, before it didn't exist because they annihilated the HU4, but now HU4 is going to be back because Gaia is moving to HU4, Tara is moving to HU3, Earth is moving to HU2, and Earth doesn't exist. It's going to be gone because it never existed before. I mean, there are other spheres of three dimensions, but not Earth. Earth was never planned by God, or by guardian founders. It became a necessity because Tara fell and then congealed and then created the whole solar system, and Earth is, of course, the main planet, right? So anyway, going back to this, you may want to live in the fifth dimension for the next 10,000 years or 5,000 years or five, I mean, do you see what I'm trying to tell you? So, I mean, it's all about experience. I mean, you would think that you would move out of it, but there are some people, certainly for certain period of time, they still want it. There's some people who still like the third dimension.
Yeah. So there's no effect of negative alien on the fifth dimension, but I've heard on the fifth dimension there's a
There
still
has
effect.
been, but it's clearing. It's
Okay.
just actually it's clearing from up, trickling down. It doesn't start from here going up. You know what I'm saying? They trickle from Gaia to Tara and now reaching, and that's why it's taking time for us. It has to trickle through dimensional planes, and we're down here.
Perfect.
It doesn't move up. It's like rolling a ball on steps. The natural is do this, not this. Gravity is down,
Okay, so my last question about the ascension, but we can continue the rest in the next session, is that you talked about the Morentia school?
Yes, Morentia school. Yes,
Morentia school. Can you explain on that?
Absolutely wonderful. There are some people who passed away, okay, and they have to wait. Okay, there are two. Listen, there are basically three ways you can upshift your energy, upshift your frequential energy or frequency or light question. One is through going through experience and bumping your head and you learn, and then avoid and then learn. That's the most fundamental. Okay. Number two is by observance. Increase your degree of observance so you're alert. And then when you see other people make mistakes or other things, you learn from that. You don't have to bleed to learn. You can learn that way. Am I correct?
Yeah.
The third way is just say, I don't even want to be in a physical system. I mean, if you can work it out. There are schools called Morantia schools or morals, school of morality. They can teach you the same things that these things can teach you. And you can practice and exercise and all this stuff. So there are people when they died or when they passed away here, they didn't go incarnate somewhere else. And you know that negative aliens, astral plane is demolished and all this stuff. So they have no control on all this stuff anymore. So your soul goes in there and then enrolls in those schools and learns. And when the frequency goes up, then goes and anchor to a higher dimension.
Okay.
So instead of going to a third dimension, you stay ethereal in energetic form. There are a lot of, I mean, life is not just physical form, it's also energetic form. There's a lot of, you can feel entities around you, they're energetic. And these energetic, they don't mean they're high plasma energies. They have their own level of plasma energy. And the level might be between third and fifth or third, or whatever, but they're etheric.
Mm-hmm.
You have to congeal your energies to incarnate.
Yeah. So basically, there are some teachers like
Yeah, ascended masters, and
okay.
I mean, I think I've done that myself, but anyway, you do it actually during dreams. You also do a lot of times. You go and help people. You sometimes help people to ascend. The people who die, they're so scared of dying. You go there, take their hands, and say there's nothing wrong with dying, or whatever. There's all kinds of. And then, I'm a teacher. I'm a guardian teacher. So
maybe you're a teacher in one of these Morentia schools.
I know a lot about it. So
yeah.
I'm still in physical form, so it is until you really leave this body, you're not fully yourself. Because your energy have fractalized to come in here. So you don't have the whole story. You can get things through inspirations and this knowledge. You go to God's neural network and surf the Akashic records, maybe. Well, how do you know all this stuff? You tell me, how do I know? I mean, I don't want to think that I'm a genius. I've been called this all my life, but what is a genius?
Yeah.
Information is there. It's all God's knowledge, and it's a matter of access and being acquainted with it. But you know what? You have to maintain that. You have to maintain the frequency. If you don't, then you diminish your status. Or
yeah. So I think it's better that we wrap up this session. It's a lot of information to process. I'm so happy that I could ask a lot of my questions, and a lot of them you answered them extensively. And we have some topics for next session. So we'll continue on the Ascension topic and more with the Guardian founders, the history about the Gaia, Tara. It's very interesting, the whole thing. So thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Sarfarazi. So see you next time on the next session. Many blessings to you and your teachings. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, and thank you for taking the initiative to do this. And I'm sure for those people that you're going to disseminate this, right? This is going to be like
yes,
it's not a private thing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they will, they will value the time that you put in this and all that stuff. And this is what I'm here for. So I'm delighted. Anything I can help to help humanity ascend, propel them to higher dimensions, frequency, or even teach them a little anything, or even help them in any fashion.
Yeah.
But the way it's monotonic. You have to go one way. It's not back. It's always forward, man. You have to think about that and walk the talk.
Yes.
That's what my final messages to people. It's very important. It's not important that you get it acclimated to something or learn about it. The worst thing is you just regurgitate it. You gotta live it. If you don't live it, it's not real. It's not consciousness.
Exactly.
Very good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So see you next week, next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.